Let me challenge you for a minute from the left,
Mm-hmm.
because you were talking about things getting better. Postmodernism came through kind of in the 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it's true that things have been marginally better for women, for races. Well, maybe not in the States, but in general, in cosmopolitan culture, things are definitely better for the races. Sexuality, trans people,
Mm-hmm.
etc. These things are all getting better. The Marxist critique would be that the postmodernists have no answer, or not much of an answer, for the underlying capitalist structure that kind of perpetuates all these other forms of oppression, patriarchy, whiteness, all whatever.
Mm-hmm. So that underlying structure, as I see it, also cements the gains that are being made. If you destroy that, any gains that are being made are reduced to the person who's the strongest or who has the most guns behind them.
Not if you reorganize the society.
Reorganization will require a certain amount of violence.
Right.
So if you want to avoid that, it has to be an evolutionary change. And insofar as you're doing that, what maintains the change is that underlying structure that Marxists were trying to eliminate. The laws, the institutional courts, for example, the public health, the various institutions of society keep society running. And if you're changing them marginally over time, that's a good thing. So, for example, I just heard recently that finally it's been taken out of the criminal code: loitering, anal sex, abortion. Were just like in the last couple of months taken out of the criminal code. That battle has been going on for a very long time.
Right.
It's now that criminal code, having taken it out, that maintains the order that allows all of those actions to be continued without discrimination.
But that order is based on exploitation, and not only is it based on exploitation, the trajectory is only bad. Like in terms of the wealth distribution going on in the future, and automation.
Yes.
Capitalism has no answer for these things, and to say that it's a stabilizing force or an orderly force is, I think, the wrong way to think about it.
So if the order...
Also the planet, too. Climate change. It's going to throw everything into shit.
That's true. So if we can, say, get legally binding climate change proposals out there, that would maintain them in spite of people being upset.
Right, but that would maintain what?
Okay, well, let's take a look at climate change. As a business, I'm going to try and save money at every step of the way. But if there's a regulation that says I have to do something this way, I can't change that.
Right.
But I will try and change that at any opportunity. So it's an ongoing power play between people who want to make more money to fight against environmental regulations, because they always, or I should say almost always, increase the costs to existing businesses.
Yeah.
And they will be fighting that at every step of the way. Unless you want to fight that at every step of the way, it's the laws that do that for you.
Yeah.
But until you get them into the laws and say that this is in fact the way you have to be, and there's a whole battle that has to be fought to get to there, it will not be permanent.
But laws, right? But laws can be retracted. Regulations can be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how social democratic you make your country, as we see in Scandinavia, these things are slowly slipping away, and capital is regaining its influence over the society.
Now, it's funny you should say that. From a left perspective, I see that totally. From the right perspective, from Jordan Peterson, I would suspect that he's seeing it the other way. It's that the right is losing it, and it's these lefties who are gaining too much power, and they're going to destroy all these hierarchies.
The cultural left.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, to be more precise. That, again, is a matter of perspective and part of the ongoing dialogue. But what I don't want is complete chaos or anarchy, as I think you support.
Well, hold on. Anarchy doesn't mean chaos. It just means decentralized governing.
So in the sense that blockchain decentralizes the movement of funds and takes it away from the control of governments and allows you to buy whatever you want, that kind of stuff, without having to pay taxes. I can't say I support that, but there is a benefit to that. There's also an exploitative benefit to that for some who may want to use it in nefarious ways for, say, drug traffic, human trafficking, and paying for that kind of stuff. So there's pluses and minuses to most things. And one of the things that I believe is that every new innovation will create its own problems, which can be dealt with at a future date. But insofar as we've created something in the past and it is being refused to change, we're holding ourselves back. So the internal combustion engine was an invention, and it's polluted the world. We need to switch.
Right.
But there's a lot of established interests that are going to be fighting against that.
Yeah.
And we need to continue to fight that. So recently, the Ford government got rid of the cap and trade, right? Which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
For the environment, not so much for industry.
No.
There's always going to be groups that are hit hard by it. So those groups that are hit hard by it are saying, oh, those lefties, they've got another victory because it's costing us more money. Ford comes in, and they, oh, thank God, it got back to normal. The lefties think, oh my God, we've just gone backwards.
Right.
So these perspectives will always change, and postmodernists recognize that. And so every small victory is a helpful thing. Oh, sorry, when I meant small victories, I meant institutionalizing them in the underground, the underlying structure of society. So if we can start taxing this and not that, and it's better for the environment, I would say that is progress, but not for those who get taxed more.
But capitalism has no end game.
True.
It's there, and it's also, it needs infinite growth on a finite planet. Marx talks about the contradictions of capital. There's lots of contradictions that put us in perpetual contradiction with each other, and with society and with nature. So, from a postmodern perspective, I mean, wouldn't you want to resolve these contradictions and move to a system?
Now, there's that answer forever. That would be a new modernity, where we have an answer. Let's resolve this once and for all.
Star Trek, space communism. They figured it out.
They figured it out, yes. And it's appealing to watch and all that, but it's incredibly unrealistic because there will always be other problems.
No. Of course there'll be problems. No Marxist or communist or anarchist ever says there won't be problems anymore. They're just highly limited in scope because you won't have these massive unnatural gaps in wealth and power. Like billionaires. Why does a billionaire exist? There's not a healthy thing for billionaires to exist at all. But they do, because capital monopolizes. It tends that way automatically. Capitalism does not trend towards free markets. It trends towards monopolization and also just further and further exploitation of land and labor. So without an end game, you're kind of just...
So there's an end game for me.
Right.
I want to make sure that I'm secure financially, and I want my kids to be able to get to university and have enough money to retire comfortably.
But for you to do all that, in order for the West to be wealthy, the rest of the world has to be poor to fund our lifestyles.
As it is today, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, there exists no future, no possible future where everyone could have our lifestyle, or even really.
Very true. At least that's what I understand. I believe that the science is quite correct.
And not even just on a having enough things perspective or food. Just the way that capitalism has to work with. I mean, there has to be an exploiting an underclass for there to be cheap goods for other people.
If there's a postmodernist who believes that that's the case, that there has to be, I suspect they may not be exactly postmodernists. There's lots of philosophers who've come up with solutions, or I shouldn't say solutions, options to that. The exploitation of others may not go on, or shouldn't go necessarily on forever. Yes, we've gotten into this disposable, designed obsolescence society that maximizes the spending of more people on the same thing over and over again. That, I think, is a major mistake of capitalism. But
that's inherent to capitalism.
I don't think it's inherent. It wasn't always inherent, and
because it needs to keep growing and expanding, it has to find new markets, new ways of generating more profit.
Yes, that's true. But the aspect of a market and the aspect of always having to generate more and more, that I hope can change. It may not be called capitalism at that point, but it might be very similar, except that we put limits on it. So I understand that there's talk now of antitrust and anti-competition investigations into some of the big tech firms. Probably not such a bad idea.
All right, well.
But it may be.
Well, as a, would you call yourself a liberal postmodernist then?
No, not liberal.
Social democratic?
No. I haven't really got a label for myself yet.
Just postmodernist?
It's wide enough that I can make it mean what I want.
You don't believe in overthrow capitalism, so that necessarily makes you a liberal.
Again, capitalism is a wide term that has a lot of things that go with it. The unlimited accumulation, if that's the only thing, then I'm not a capitalist. If you include markets in capitalism, then I'm a capitalist.
Oh, well, I mean, there's market socialism.
One of the ones we may do next year is Slavoj Žižek's book, Violence, where he describes the liberal communist as being the first world middle class, upper class person.
Okay.
And his suggestion is that we should all be taken out and shot, because we're the problem.
Yeah.
Now, his reasoning is because we are creating so much havoc in the world, so much pain and suffering for others and the environment with all the manufactured goods that we have around us, that we are the world's worst perpetrators in history of mass destruction, mass misery to others, including the environment. Well, I don't want to get taken out and shot, and nor do I want that for anybody else around me. I find his analysis very compelling.
Yeah.
That we are the worst in history, which he labels a liberal communist. So I don't want, and he's got a very good definition of liberal as being concerned with what essentially middle class and upper class first world people are concerned
Society,
with.
yeah.
Yeah. That is part of what has to change, yes. And he, as a postmodern philosopher, articulating that.
But he is also quite explicitly a Marxist.
Yes.
Or at least he uses Marxist analysis.
He uses Marxist analysis, but he's using communist, liberal communist, to describe these people. And where
kind of contradiction in terms.
Well, Marxists and communists are two different things, as
right.
he wants to put out there. He's also very Lacanian. Yeah. In any case, his end result is that when we look around and see no violence around us, we're blind.
Right.
The violence that it took to make this is enormous. To get our bananas to our tables, to our eggs to our tables, the industrialization that's required for that makes us the world's most exploitive people.
So you're coming around
to social anarchist?
To the understanding that the revolution is needed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I'm not there yet. I'm still looking for an evolutionary change in that direction, and I do see progress in that respect, which means that I often have to fight against my best interests.
All right, well, Jeff, I think that's it.
Okay.
I think we're good.
All right. Please let me know. I'd like to see this when it comes out.
It was good talking to you. Only a couple years in the gulag for you. We'll spare you after the revolution. You're good.
I'm glad I'm not dead yet.
We'll treat you well. You'll have a nice cell in the gulag.